Hi everybody, welcome back to AP Psychology with me, Miss Baines, your teacher, where you can take advantage of being able to pause and rewind me as I deliver you the latest content. So go ahead and grab those felt tip markers, get a nice comfy space in which to work, and of course don't forget those ever important binder notes that go lockstep in order with this video, called Unit 4, Video 3, Operant Conditioning. Pages 9, 10, 11, and 12 in your binder notes. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so here we are. As you can see, our learning targets for today are all about operant conditioning. So we're moving away from classical conditioning and we're going to talk about operant. And we're really going to describe what that means and what the different schedules and reinforcements and punishments look like in operant conditioning. Okay, it's a little different from what we've been talking about with classical. So let's talk about that comparison between the two of those before anything else. Classical conditioning forms an association between two different stimuli. So it's between the conditioned stimulus and the unconditioned stimulus. So for example, with Ivan Pavlov's dogs, the dog associated the sound of the ticking metronome with the giving of their food. So a big mistake that a lot of students make is saying that the dog will associate the bell with drooling or salivating, and therefore they will salivate. But no. It's got to be an association between one stimuli and another. It's that the dog hears the ticking of the metronome and it makes the dog think about food, which then makes him think about eating the food and he begins to salivate. Okay? So make sure you get that down in the very top of page 12 in your binder notes, followed by a definition of what is known as operant conditioning. Okay? Operant conditioning, on the other hand, is when we form an association between behaviors. So let's just say that Pavlov dogs are being operantly conditioned and not classically conditioned, as we've been talking about. And you, as the experimenter or the owner of your dog, is like, sit, Lulu, right? And when Lulu sits and she puts her little butt on the ground, you follow it up by giving Lulu a treat. She is associating the word sit with getting that treat. Every time I put my butt on the floor, I get a yummy snack. So she's associating sitting on that floor with the yummy snack. Those two things, and that behavior is the resulting event of that consequence. So just like on the illustration down here, we have a little dog and the dad dog. They'll give you a lot of treats while they're training you, so play dumb for as long as you can, right? The difference between classical and operant conditioning is that there's a reward involved in operant. Okay, so it's that reward that makes the behavior have the desired effect. In classical conditioning, when the dog or animal forms an association between two stimuli, some of the example responses would be to blink or flinch or to get a stomach ache or to feel nauseous or to wince in pain that might be coming with whatever they're conditioned to feel because of the stimuli. Okay? The difference in operant condition the dog or animal forms an association between behaviors and resulting events. So some examples might be sit, roll over, do high fives with people, do your homework, do your chores, be home on time, meet your curfew. At your job, get here, show up, do your job, and you'll get paid, right? With an athlete, don't miss that important shot or you won't get the applause. With a dancer, right? You have to show up for the recital and do a good job and don't fall down in order to get that standing ovation. All of the behavior, right? All of the behavior is elicited because of the anticipation of some kind of reward. So when you are thinking about operant conditioning, and forming associations between behaviors and their resulting events, I want you to remember that there are both positive and negative reinforcements. Okay, I want you to get out of your head the association that positive means good and negative means bad. Okay, because there's a lot more to it, and that just simply isn't the definition in psychology, especially not for the behaviorists. A lot of times we think that consequence is something negative, or that consequence has a bad connotation. Well, not necessarily. A consequence can be positive because it's just the result of what happens after something that you just did, which is your response, okay? So which means that the response is strengthened. The rat or the dog or the cat is incentivized to want to do whatever the thing is, again, to get back that reward. And this is kind of what Thorndike was talking about with his law of effect. Actions that are followed by desirable outcomes are more likely to be repeated, while those followed by undesirable outcomes are less likely to be repeated. So go ahead and pause me and put that down on your paper under Thorndikes Law of Effect. Thorndike's discovery had a major influence on the development of operant conditioning. In other words, he said that responses that produce desirable results will be learned or stamped into the animal or organism. Okay, so it's very simple. Kudos to Thorndike for putting a name to this incredibly simple concept that when a response is followed by a desirable result, the response will be repeated. Right? It's going to be stamped into the animal, into their brain, that they will get a reward if they do this behavior. So we found that a hungry cat in, say, a puzzle box shown below, much like this one, would work diligently to solve the puzzle by trial and error in order to obtain the fish or some other food reward outside of the box. And that they are, in fact, actually solving a problem because they are being rewarded to do so. And so they were gradually succeeding because erroneous or wrong responses were eliminated, while effective responses were strengthened because they got a reward for the correct response every time. So the cats must think to themselves, "Ooh, I can remember to do what I just did. I'll do it every time and again because I will get a reward. I will get a piece of fish." Hence, Thorndike's Law of Cause and Effect. Put that in your notes also. Okay, so let's take a look now at a short video clip that shows Thorndike doing his work with operant conditioning and cats.
But how is a new skill learned? That was a question which began to fascinate Thorndike. To answer it, he built some ingenious puzzle boxes from which cats could only escape by operating latches.
And in you go.
The cat appears to be very clever in engineering its escape, solving the problem with a deftly placed paw and a push of its nose. But Thorndike didn't believe that an animal, even a clever cat, understands the consequences of its behavior. When he placed a cat in the puzzle box for the first time, Thorndike was unable to see any evidence of flashes of insight. The successful actions appeared first by chance. He proved that the apparent cleverness arose by trial and error, and used graphs to measure the rate of learning. A well-practiced cat quickly recalls the actions that help it escape to its reward of food. If an action brings a reward, Thorndike believed that that action becomes stamped into the mind. In his thesis, he explained further his ideas about learning, that behavior changes because of its consequences. He called this his law of effect, which explained how even wild creatures develop new habits.
Next up, we have B.F. Skinner. Okay? B.F. Skinner, other than Sigmund Freud, became, until his 86th year of life, at his death, the best known psychologist in the world. His ideas are still widely used today in psychological research, education, all sorts of animal training, and many ways in the psychotherapeutic clinical room in a therapist's tool belt. You may want to jot this down too in your notes on the side for Skinner. He was a little kooky and a little bit severe, we'll say. All we need to know, he said, are external causes of behavior and the observable results of that behavior. We are what we are because of our history. We like to believe we have free will, that we can choose or that we can act out whatever. But I don't believe a person is free or responsible. The autonomous human being is an illusion, he says. A good person is just one who's been conditioned to behave that way. And the good society is one that is based on behavioral engineering, the scientific control of behavior through methods of positive reinforcement. That's some freaky sci-fi shit, if you ask me. You heard what I just said there, right? Like, he's comparing us humans basically to baby animals who can be zapped into being either good or bad human beings as grown-ups, as long as we were shaped to be that way. Anyway, Skinner did train a pigeon to peck away different songs on a piano, and a pair of pigeons to play ping pong, in which they rolled the ball back and forth and competed for points with their beak, or food, which would be their reward. Fun fact, on his very first TV appearance, he posed a dilemma. He says, "Would you, if you had to choose, burn your children or your books?" He joked that he himself would burn his children, since his contribution to the future would be greater through his work than through his genes. Predictably, he elicited outrage, and many people did not ever ask him to appear again on national TV or to their dinner parties. Yes, I know. In the world of psychology, he is actually the one who coined the term operant conditioning and what we call the operant chamber, in which he used and applied Thorndikes Law of effect as a starting point. So operant conditioning is a method of learning that occurs through rewards and punishments of behavior. The term operant refers to any active behavior that operates upon the environment to generate consequences. He went on to use this operant chamber, aka the Skinner box, to study operant conditioning. He used it first with mice, and there were a certain combination of things that the mouse had to do in order to be rewarded with its sugar water. And each time that they did a correct combination of whatever they had to do, whether it be hitting a lever or turning on a light or whatever the button was, it would re-strengthen or reinforce the behavior, which would be to solve whatever the scientists wanted the mouse to do. And it got better and better and better each time because it was being rewarded to do so. So the operant chamber, or Skinner box, as shown here, comes with a bar or a key that a small animal can manipulate to obtain the food or water reinforcer, right? So it's connected to the devices that records the animal's responses and allows the researcher to have complete control over the animal's environment. And then they can do a combination of lighting the light or pulling the lever or hitting the button or whatever it is until the mouse keeps getting rewarded to do the thing that the scientist wants the mouse to do. Okay, so next we have shaping. Shaping is a kind of an extension of operant conditioning. It's pretty simple. We get into the nuts and bolts of operant conditioning, but shaping is a very important procedure in which reinforcements guide the behavior closer and closer towards a target overall behavior. These little successive approximations are rewarded as the little animals are learning something with baby steps, right? So for example, we have these giant rats in Africa where they've been at civil unrest and at civil war for decades, walking through fields to go and sniff out deadly landmines. These giant rats undergo a series of steps until they learn how to sniff out these landmines. You don't just look at a rat and say, "Hey, cutie pie, go and get us those landmines." No. You have to take baby steps, right? You have to teach them each step of the way when they're doing something good and reward that behavior and string those little approximations together for the whole act of going to find the landmines for, say, a banana. Okay? So let's take a look at these giant rats live at work in Africa.
Meet a Gambian pouched rat. He's also been dubbed a hero rat because these guys are being groomed to save lives. They're almost blind but have a keen sense of smell. So they've been trained to sniff out landmines. They can also be trained to diagnose tuberculosis through smell, much more quickly and accurately than human lab technicians can with a microscope. I'm here in a minefield in rural Angola, a country decimated by 3 decades of civil war. Normally, landmine detection is painstakingly slow. It's done with metal detectors that constantly sound false alarms, from scraps of metal like empty bullet casings or nails. Each time, the earth must be carefully brushed away. But rats can scramble through the minefield, and they respond only to the scent of explosives. In 2 hours, they can clear land that would take a human days to clear.
The rats already cleared maybe 400 square feet in just a few minutes, and it works for bananas.
The rats themselves are too light to set off the landmines.
I think the rat has maybe detected something. If he thinks it's TNT, he'll scratch the ground for a little bit. That area will be marked for further investigation.
Alfredo Adamo is a field supervisor here, and he knows firsthand the toll of landmines. His grandfather lost a leg to a mine.
There are areas now that there are schools, and there are houses, and there are farms where we worked. And when I pass by and I see all these things, I feel proud.
And now farmers have access to land that was once too treacherous to farm. Hero rats reflect a revolution in humanitarian aid. Organizations are applying new approaches to old problems, hugely amplifying their impact. So bravo to the innovators, and to these giant rats saving human lives.
Okay, so with all animals, they can be shaped to learn lots of different things. A seal or a manatee might learn different shapes, colors, balls, bouncing them from nose to nose. A dolphin may learn to go through a hoop or a series of dancing with its trainer. Maybe your own dog, you can, I don't know, train it to go to the end of the driveway and get the newspaper, right? You can't just say, "Lulu, go get me the newspaper." Not at first, anyway, right? You have to first teach Lulu to go on the driveway. Then you have to teach Lulu to go to the end of the driveway and turn around. Then you have to teach Lulu to go to the end of the driveway, turn around, and come back. Then you have to train Lulu to go to the end of the driveway, pick up a newspaper, and bring it to you while you're standing next to him or her, and not rip it or let it get filled up with spit, because then it would be useless to read. Right? And then once the dog learns how to hold it properly in its mouth, you have to reteach it how to come back to the house to give it to the owner in order to get its reward. Okay, so the manatee here, right, on this little chart here, gives a glimpse of what we're about to go over with operant conditioning. Terms with some operant conditioning terms being the negative and positive reinforcements. I encourage you to pause and kind of look this chart over. So for example, the positive reinforcements might be getting a hug or receiving a paycheck or getting an allowance, right? And a negative reinforcement might be like removing an aversive stimulus, so fastening your seatbelt in order to turn off the beep, 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 beep. Okay? It's a little tricky, right? The difference between positive and negative reinforcements. So let's talk about that. But before that, take a look over here at the meerkat down on the slide, who is super cute, getting a little warmth from the light, and says in the caption, "We'll do flips for heat." It's brick outside in this winter. Very cute. Okay, so reinforcement stimuluses are favorable events or outcomes that are presented after the behavior. Response or behavior is strengthened by the addition of something, whether it be praise or a direct reward. For example, if you do a good job at work, your manager will give you a bonus. Negative reinforcement is the removal of an unfavorable event or outcome after the display of a behavior. Okay, so positive reinforcement are favorable events or outcomes that are presented after the behavior. The response or behavior is strengthened by the addition of some kind of praise or direct reward. For example, if you, a grown human, does a good job at work, you receive from your manager not only like a pat on the back, but they might give you a bonus or a gift at the end of the year. Negative reinforcement, okay, is the removal of an unfavorable event or outcomes after the display of a behavior. The response is strengthened by the removal of something considered unpleasant, right? So you're eliminating something painful or annoying, but reinforcing it to happen again the next time you need it. A primary reinforcer is something that is innate. Okay, a primary reinforcer is innate, meaning we are born to be reinforced by the stimulus. It's innately reinforcing, and it usually satisfies some biological need, like eating food or drinking water or breathing air or getting sleep or having sex. Okay? So, for example, these biological needs, these reinforcers, have an evolutionary basis in that they aid in the survival of our species. Okay, we are born to be reinforced by the stimulus, and they are innately inside of us. So if I say free Chipotle for all of you who, your ears start to perk up, right? You're like, what do I have to do to be in that group? What is the if I do what to get some free Chipotle right now? I want to be in that group, right? All right, so that would be a biological reinforcer because it's food, right? It's biological because you need food to eat. And say you're in fifth period and you didn't take lunch and now you're starving. That would be a real incentive to want to do whatever the behavior is that the teacher is talking about in order to get some free Chipotle. A secondary reinforcer is a learned reinforcer. So when we come out of the womb, we don't understand what, say, money is, right? We have no idea who George Washington is and why his face is on a green little piece of paper with a 1 on it. And we don't know what that 1 means, that it means a dollar amount, and we don't know what to do with that money. Right? But we do know as adults that it is a very strong secondary reinforcer for us later in life. Often it can be just praise from your favorite teacher or some other adult whose opinion you really respect, or praise from your parents that they're proud of you. Some kids wait their whole lives for that. Or a smile from someone that you love, a good hearty laugh from a joke that you just told or a funny story. Tell me that's not the most rewarding feeling in the world when somebody laughs their butt off because you said something hilarious. Maybe you're an athlete and you got the winning score or a goal, right? And everyone's chanting your name. We learn to like these things. So they are reinforcing, right? Their reinforcement powers through the association that we make with the primary reinforcement, right? The reward, the cheer, the yeah. Okay? Those reinforcers are powerful, and that doesn't always have to be money. Okay? An immediate reinforcer is one that occurs closely to a behavior in time. So for a rat, it might be a pellet of food. As soon as it hits the lever, it has to press a lever or push a button, and immediately upon finishing a task, when it hits that lever, it is immediately rewarded with a pellet of food. A delayed one is in time. After a certain behavior, you will get the reward. For example, a paycheck, right? Or for you guys, your allowance comes at the end of the week. So you're inclined for working on Monday through Friday to do your schoolwork and whatever else you're supposed to be doing. And as you get closer to Friday, say Wednesday night, Thursday, you start working even harder because you don't want to screw that up, knowing that you're getting your reward, your allowance on Friday, right? And we know that we may be inclined to engage in small immediate reinforcers, like getting to watch a TV series, say, when we're in the middle of studying for a big series of interim assessments, right? We might reward ourselves after we study for 2 subjects that night, right? Rather than say, I want to get A's on every single one of my classes for my report card, right? That requires consistent and constant studying, right? With no little mini rewards in between. You're always like on the path to get those A's. Immediate gratification is something that your generation is known to need for everything that you do, right? There's articles written about it. There's research that says that your generation is highly, highly susceptible to needing some kind of immediate reward for every single thing that you engage in. So what I have to say to that is that sounds like a pretty negative reputation that people say that you have, and I know, and I have seen many people work super hard for all that they do and for every grade and A that they work for. Okay, so on that note, that's where we're going to end for today. I hope you learned everything that you need to know thus far for operant conditioning, and tune in tomorrow for the other half of operant conditioning, where we will talk about the schedules of reinforcement and all that good stuff. Bye now.